By the way, everyone, it's Atika Shubert of CNN, and a dear friend, a long time friend. We knew each other when we were young, since we were very young,
Yeah.
and hard to think now that how young that we were when we started out reporting, and the time that we reported, which was the change of hands, I suppose, from Suharto to all the next generation of presidents. But
Yeah, it was a
yeah,
crazy time. I can't, it's really hard to believe sometimes how much time has passed. Um, and where we've all ended up. It's been crazy. Yeah.
and you especially, part of my spotlight on you is because I wanted to show my listeners, aspirational role models, what you can accomplish in terms of like if you actually pursue particular career for a long period of time, that you can become an expert level in something. And it's always fun when you have somebody with your kind of experience, the breadth of like, I mean, you weren't just kind of any kind of reporting, you were reporting from all over the world and always in the most intense moments when you're reporting. um, I particularly love your wedding story. You trying to get married, and because you're the correspondent for the Middle East, and then events happen in Jerusalem at the time that you got married, that you had to leave your wedding. Oh my God. This could only happen to Atika. And I said, oh, when I heard that story for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, she is made of steel, that woman. It's
Well,
amazing.
yeah, I barely remember that, but I do remember kind of brushing off and doing stuff. And the sad thing is, I think that happened quite regularly. So they all sort of blur together where I was rushing from one
Mm,
story to another. It was great. I mean, it was a great whirlwind, and I was a lot younger. So I felt, I probably had a lot more energy to do it. Um,
mm,
but yeah, no, I had a really great 20-year run as a full-time producer and then reporter with CNN,
mm.
and I enjoyed every minute. It was fantastic. That was a complete surprise.
We're talking in reference to the recent Nobel Peace Prize for journalism. One of the two winners is Maria Ressa, who was bureau chief of CNN in Jakarta, of course, which Atika worked closely with. At the time, uh, Maria Ressa was the bureau chief when you were working in the office,
Yeah, I mean, we both worked with her, and
right?
so we know her from way back when. And I, for me, I think it's one of those things when you know somebody on a very personal
Yeah,
level, and suddenly
right.
they're up on stage somewhere, and you're like, "What? How did that happen?" And they're still the same person, and yet they're so much bigger at the same time.
Hmm.
And I and I've watched her go from when she hired me as the producer, as you know,
Hmm.
thanks to you.
You're welcome.
and then, and then and then she encouraged me to go on the air, which I didn't want to do. But she had confidence in me, pushed
Mhm,
me to write scripts, which was great because again I wasn't a TV script writer.
mhm,
um, and then let me you know basically let me go to do my own reporting. And then when
mhm,
she started Rappler, I was really astonished because I thought, wow, this is a huge new project. And it started, I think, for her, not with this huge mission, but more of as an experiment of digital media, new tinkering with new digital media,
mhm,
interacting with audiences.
mhm,
And then came along Duterte, and I think it's her opposition to him that really became the defining moment for her and
mhm,
for journalism, especially in the Philippines. But it's been really fascinating to watch. And the last time I saw her, I think I was in Berlin.
mhm.
When she started Rappler, I met with her. We were in London together, and we had a really great time. But I saw her again in Berlin, and she was, I mean, it was just incredible. She was carrying around wads of cash in case she got arrested, in the Philippines, so she could bail herself out.
Mhm.
Because she had all of these,
Wow.
yeah, legal attacks. So it was really, but I think what really impressed me was that she didn't just, she wouldn't she wouldn't back down
Mm-hmm.
to Duterte, but she
Right.
also wouldn't back down to Facebook, which so you're not just facing off against dictators, but
Mm.
digital giants, you know? And so her fight for, I would say, facts is taken her from Duterte to Facebook, which is incredible. And I think what's interesting is the Nobel Prize, to me, wasn't so much about just journalism, but freedom of expression. And the fact that they awarded it not just to Maria, but to the Russian editor as well,
Right.
was really sort of like, nope, uh, a confirmation that journalism is important and must be, supported. So I thought, I mean, I was very happy with that, certainly,
Mm-hmm.
and really proud of Maria that are.
Hmm. Yeah. It's very interesting because you mentioned digital media, and you, in particular, Facebook in itself, and the role of Facebook as sort of a digital media grandfather, for and a new stream kind of journalism, because you're old school journalism at this point, even though you're
Yeah.
TV, but you're old school journalism. And so it's very interesting to hear your viewpoint about that. Do you feel like the current quality of news reporting um, has reliability, or do you feel confident about that, or do you feel there's not enough check and balances to it?
No, I don't. I completely still trust news today. I think the problem is more
Mm.
that uh, because of the social media, the blurring of news and
Yeah.
what I would say kind of not just opinion, but almost propaganda is the problem, you know? Um, but from established news outlets and even from some terrific bloggers, there are some excellent sources of journalism. I
Mm.
do think journalism is changing. I am completely old school. It's really sad to say, but I mean, I grew up in the era of tape.
Mhm.
I'm sure you remember the days when if
I
you
have no
had
idea
to
what you're
edit a
talking about.
package, you had to edit a package and you had to run with the yellow tape to the
Yeah.
satellite point and slot it in,
Yeah.
and you were like diving under things. That doesn't
Mm.
happen anymore. And I remember the days when if you wanted to do a live shot somewhere, it was like 12 pieces of huge hard case luggage to get there, set it up, lights and everything, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, let me pop up my iPhone. I'll be
Mm.
live, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't it is in I think a lot of people kind of miss the old school days of
Mhm.
journalism, but I also think those days weren't always the best either. You had much more you had certain points of view that
Mhm.
were established and those were the only points of view you heard.
Mhm.
Now you hear a plethora of voices and
Mhm.
that's confusing for people, certainly. But at the same time, I think it's good. I think it's good that you hear from more outlets, more independent news outlets. I
Yeah.
can now see more independent news outlets from other countries than
Mm.
I did before because of digital media, because of the internet. So I don't think it's changed for the worse at all, but I do think it's changing, and I think that there's been some terrific. I mean, podcasting. What you're doing is fantastic. You're all into new media, Tanya. Like me, I am still
I'm
stuck
a
in the old
blend,
days.
I kick in old school with new school.
But
Always learning.
but I mean, the podcast genre has completely made investigative reporting, for example,
Yeah.
an incredible audio journey for people. I
Yes.
mean, I think for a lot of people, it's opened up a field of investigative journalism they didn't even know of before. They wouldn't have
Mhm.
taken necessarily the time to read it. Now they can hear it,
Mhm.
So I think there's lots of, but it's still the same journalism. It's
Mhm.
still digging for facts, putting the story together,
Mhm.
making it into a cohesive structure for people to digest. So
Mhm.
I'm not too worried about the state of journalism. I do think that I think a lot of the wild west of the internet, these digital giants do need to kind of go, okay, what are the regulations? How do we verify facts, for
Mhm.
example? How do we monitor that kind of stuff? But in terms of the journalism itself, I think it's I think it's still thriving and healthy.
Is Facebook Wild West? Hmm.
I don't think Facebook is Wild West anymore, but I think it
Right.
grew up in those days, and so it resists. a lot of the regulation, perhaps, that you see in other industries. But that's what's happening now is you're starting to see all those regulations, and not just Facebook. I mean,
Mm.
Twitter,
Right.
Google. But it's just that Facebook is such a huge chunk
Right.
of it. It's the one I would say probably most people are familiar with.
Right. You know what's surprising is the stopgap of the fuzzy news, maybe what you were calling earlier, the blurring of the between social media and actual news. It's even like in TikTok. I'm always so surprised when my 14-year-old daughter comes up with actual facts or opinions from thought leaders somewhere. But both sides, both counter opinions that is presented in a skit by a 16-year-old somewhere,
Yeah,
role playing, and which it's just so brilliant, like brilliant kind of commentary, and the kids are absorbing it it's so easy. It's like it's not even grown up stuff, it's kids play, and they're doing it so sophisticated, actually. And
yeah.
yeah, and that is actually the moment, we're so ancient that we can't do TikTok. That's like how we can't do it. We're way too old. This is about as
It's
far, probably the format that we can do is this podcasting.
it's totally true. Although I have a friend, my former colleague at CNN, Max Foster, is brilliant at TikTok. He's
Okay, I'm gonna
brilliant
check him out.
at making news stories into teeny weeny little videos that somehow get to the kernel of the story. He's just a genius at that kind of thing. I don't know how he
Right.
does it. So I think you're never too old, but you have to be willing to be like, okay, let me reset my brain and make this work. I don't know how he does it, but he does. I'm definitely not a TikToker. Can't figure it out for the life of me. Although I
Yeah.
think it's fascinating, and
Yeah.
I think that for kids, this is the way to communicate and interact. You know, not just kids.
One thing they've got it figured out is good lighting and good transitions. That's the one thing
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're masters of that. And then I'm like, and every time I try to do one, and my daughter's just like, just no, that's no, 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 mommy, no. I'm like, it's nothing more crushing than when your 14-year-old daughter just goes, no, mommy, no. That's
Oh
not the way you
wow.
do it. How cool is that, everybody? That was Atika Shubert, reporter extraordinaire, right? World
That's
journalist.
very kind of you.
No, it's true. It's true. Not everybody can say that, and I love having this chat with you. All right.
Okay. It
Love.
was great talking to you.
Bye, darling. Have a good night. A good day. Bye.
Bye.